Hello there! I'm Emily.
And I'm Kayla.
And we just want to talk movies. Welcome to Season 3 of our beloved podcast.
Some would say Season 3 is often the best season of TV shows, so we'll see.
Will this be our renaissance?
It might be.
We are across the ocean from each other.
Across the country and the ocean.
Yes. Kayla is coming to us from the country of Wales. Is it a country?
Yep. Yes, it's kind of debated, but I'd say yes.
Yeah. So,
I'm in the UK, but specifically in Wales.
Yes. So bear with us as we try to keep this podcast going as we are millions of miles apart.
Yeah. The synchronization might be weird. I don't know yet. We'll see what I can do.
Apologies in advance. But we're gonna get through it. I know we will. Okay.
We will try.
Yes. Alright, so not wasting any time, let's just jump right into it. We're gonna be talking about romantic horror today in the spirit of the Valentine's Day holiday. The month of February.
And also in the spirit of Hard Eyes.
Yes, I will be giving my review of the new February slasher, Hard Eyes, which only I saw because unfortunately Kayla couldn't see it in Wales yet.
It will be coming out on the 14th for me, which is in like 5 days. Yes. So I'll be seeing it soon.
But before that, we of course will start with news, as we always do. As this Daisy Ridley Rey Star Wars movie continues to chug along, we now have a new writer, George Nolfi, who wrote Bourne Ultimatum. And, yeah. I mean, this movie's just been whack ever since it was announced. I don't know if it's going to happen, but everyone claims it's still going to happen, guys. Don't worry. Okay. Anyway.
I'm intrigued, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm mostly worried.
I'm worried. I was worried when they announced it because the director they have, and of course with Kathleen Kennedy, they're very much like, oh, we want to focus on... It's a story about a strong woman. And I'm like, okay, but like, what about the rest of it? Like, Star Wars is a very big universe. It's not just Rey. I know Daisy Ridley is a very strong woman, and so is Rey. And we love that. But there needs to be a bit more.
Yeah, I feel like that was a big complaint about the sequel series, was that she didn't have a lot of character beyond that. Mm-hmm. And... I feel like if they lean into that even more, then what are you doing?
Yes. But this new writer has, when asked about it, he's talked about how he really wants to make this story feel like the OG Star Wars. He wants to take it back to George Lucas's vision. So that gives me hope.
Well, they also keep trying to do that.
Yeah.
And,
you don't know if he's... telling the truth, and I don't know how much power he has over, the big people in charge. Mm-hmm. But that was sort of promising, at least. At least he seems to be focusing on story first, rather than other stuff. And
trying to respect the source material, rather than being like, I can do something better and more woke.
Yeah, make it for the new age. No. Other than that, we've heard... to no one's surprise that Matthew Lillard is returning for Scream 7. Will he be playing a long-lost twin of Stu? Who knows?
He could be. I wouldn't put it past them.
I'm trying so hard to be positive and give them the benefit of the doubt. I don't know why. It's
Not
just because
me.
I really want Scream to be good.
I'm done. I'm not going to see it in theaters.
But when I heard
I'll probably see it illegally, if that.
Yeah, that just made me like, wow, why? Why? You keep digging yourself into this hole.
They should just stop. They need to stop. I think it's time to stop. Yes.
Anyway, so that was my news that I wanted to go over. Any news from Wales?
Well, there's lots of news in Wales. However,
Welsh film.
I don't know. Gavin and Stacey's big over here. Apparently, it's like more than half of Wales tuned into the season finale. That's all I know.
Wow.
I do have some Stranger Things news, everyone. Are you surprised? Have you ever heard of it?
Oh, God. Ever heard of it?
Are you ready for my intro? Season 3 intro. We have to up the ante. So, here we go. Okay, that was really bad.
Same.
That was really bad and mostly the same as it has been. Anyway, there was some sort of convention. Honestly, I don't really know what convention it was, but the Duffer Brothers were there and a lot of the cast were there, and they just kind of talked about the new season. And the Duffer Brothers said that they are committed to getting the season out within 2025. So to me, that means like November, December of 2025, knowing this show. Anyway, they also said that season 5 will have a lot of flashbacks to season 1. And they've also confirmed with some quotations because you never know in Hollywood, in this business. But they said that none of the characters in this show will ever return for spin-offs. So this will be the end of their stories, period. So I hope that's true. That's all the news I have for today, folks.
Yes. We're going to get right into it with Emily's review of Hard Eyes. So we're going to start giving just my overall thoughts on the film, which I think it was decent. It was entertaining. I don't think it's going to be a new classic in the slasher genre. I don't know, as cool as the Hard Eyes Killer look is, I don't think it's going to catch on from this movie. But if you're just looking for a fun little slasher that does some kind of different things, I think it's definitely worth going out and seeing. Positives of the movie first. I love the concept of a rom-com just accidentally colliding with a slasher movie. I knew that it was like gonna have element of romance in it, but I didn't think it's like straight up you're just watching a rom-com and then, oh, oops, now there's some murders and here we are. I was like, oh, okay. The main romance of the film starts off like I was kind of just like, oh my gosh, because okay, they have their little meet cute at the coffee shop, and it's like, ooh, haha, ooh, they like each other, and she just got out of a relationship, so she's looking for something, and then it cuts to her. She's at work. She works for this advertising thing for a jewelry company, I think it was, and then her boss is mad at her because the campaign was like in poor taste or something, so she's in hot water now, and we're bringing in a new person to do your job, and guess who the new person to do her job is? And I was like,
enemies to lovers.
Am I reading an Allie Hazelwood novel? I was like, this is so good, yes. So that was really cute how they did that. I liked that setup a lot, because obviously they have that rivalry to them, but they have to come together to fight this slasher villain. I think the guy character, and hold on, let me see this actor's name. He's in the Scream movies, the new Scream movies, and I really like him in those. Out of all the characters in those movies, I found him to be like the most charismatic, and he was definitely that way here too. Mason Gooding. He's just like, he has a lot of charm to him, and even though in this movie and the Scream movies as well, the writing, like the things he's actually saying are like this isn't really funny, but his charisma makes it cute. So yeah. I really enjoyed his character a lot. He was pretty adorable. And then you have Olivia Holt as the final girl. And I like Olivia Holt, but the character is very, like, you know, oh, I don't believe in love. It's not, it's like, oh, okay.
Gets annoying after a while.
Yeah, it's just like, okay, I see what you're doing. But I think that they had decent chemistry with each other. And you definitely need that in a movie like this, obviously, because surprisingly, it very much is 50% rom-com. The slasher vibe is not there for large chunks of the movie. It's relying on this rom-com plot. It very much is like you're going along and it's your typical romantic comedy, and then, oh, wait, hold up. Now we got
killing.
Now it's slasher. All right, now we're going to get back into rom-com. And I wasn't expecting that at all. But it wasn't bad. Like, I think it's a really good idea. As someone who is a very big fan of the, like I said, the Allie Hazelwood type rom-com and slashers, you mix those together, yes, please.
Yeah, that's fun.
I loved how that progressed, how their banter with each other was cute and funny a lot of times. And then, of course, at the end where they have to be badass and fight the killer, it was very fun to watch.
The team up.
Yes.
I love a romantic team up to kill
we get our damsel in distress moment as well. Love that. Rescue your lover and then team up and kick ass. Oh, I'm here for it. Next positive, obviously, is the look of the Hard Eyes Killer. It's very cool. And I was afraid, I'm going to talk a little bit more about this later, but I was afraid that this was just going to be a Scream movie with a different looking killer. Especially since it's from the producers of Scream, and obviously you have one of the actors in it. But what was cool about the killer is he's very much more Jason than Ghostface. The way he walks and moves and just
that's fun.
Everything around him, it's very Jason coded. He uses a variety of weapons, which I like. As much as we like an iconic weapon for a killer, I like it when he'll be creative.
They're creative. Yeah.
Yeah. And the kills, after Terrifier, it's kind of hard to be blown away by anything. And this is definitely compared to Terrifier, this is like PG practically.
Very tame.
But it's still, you got some good kills in there, and some good practical effects. So, getting into like my mid things about the film, because it's very much 50-50 rom-com and slasher, there's not a huge body count, and there's not a lot of time put into kills. They're usually pretty quick, and it's nothing, even Friday the 13th will have way more than this does. And I don't know, it's okay, because the kills are still, it's not like they're bloodless and just cutaways and all that, but you get the first kill, which is in like this, I don't know, this wine thing, something where you make wine, where this stupid girl decides to hide in it. I'm like, okay, honey. And it crushes her, and I was excited for a second, so like, okay, we can get something cool, and it's just like a horrid CG head explosion. I'm like, okay. No. But the idea of the kill itself is still cool. So it's kind of like that, where it's like, okay, you have some cool ideas, but the execution isn't always the best. And then other times you'll, like, towards the end, you'll get kills where it's like, wow, that's a lot of practical gore and blood. So I'm like, why did you do the CG thing in the beginning? Also, the comedy is very hit or miss in this.
Okay.
I didn't realize that this is very much a spoof of slashers. Like, there's not like a moment where it's very serious at any point. It's very much just making fun of the slasher genre, which is kind of like Scream, but almost even more so, to the point where it feels like straight up parody sometimes. And that doesn't always work for me. I'm like, you could have been a little more serious throughout the movie. It's so weird because some of the jokes I genuinely will laugh at, and then they'll do another one the next second, and I'm like, oh, that was so bad. And it was like that the whole movie, just back and forth. Like, and the writing is like, yeah, I don't really know about this. But luckily, I think just the characters and seeing them develop, and then like the charisma from the leading man, I think helps that a lot. So you don't linger on it too much. Okay, so I'm gonna get into like sort of spoilers. I'm gonna spoil all of it because obviously Kayla has not seen
I have
this.
not seen.
But like mid spoilers, halfway spoilers. I don't think this will ruin the whole movie, but there is a revelation that there is more than one killer, which I'm like, okay, so now we're gonna start doing Scream. And sure enough, the third act very much is just a Scream movie, and I'm like, ugh, I didn't love that. You know, the killers, they start their monologue, and I'm like, oh, okay. And who the killers are, the second these characters stepped onto the screen, I'm like, oh, that's a killer. There's no, and it's so embarrassing because when they reveal, it's like this dramatic, here's the killer. I'm like, yeah, I knew that like an hour ago. So that was very disappointing. And I knew as soon as, I mean, both the killers, their first moment on the screen, I was like, okay, I can't tell if they're doing like an obvious red herring, but this is obviously someone who'd be the killer. And then sure enough it was. And I'm like, it's pretty painful. And the way they act like it's a huge surprise. I don't know, again, maybe that was supposed to be a joke, because it is kind of a spoof movie.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And that was a problem a lot of the time too. I'm like, I can't tell when you're joking or when you're being genuine.
When it's just not working.
Yeah, so that was disappointing. There's a horrid joke if Jordana Brewster from the Fast and Furious franchise is in this, and there's a moment where she's like the detective lady, and she has a partner, and they're talking to the main girl, and they introduce themselves, and he's like, I'm so-and-so Hobbs, and she's like, and I'm so-and-so Shaw. That alone would have been cringe, but then the movie stops dead, where the main girl's like, Hobbs and Shaw? Like the movie? And then the two characters look at each other like, I've never seen that. I'm like, okay, stop. So that's what I'm talking about. Like, some jokes like that are like, stop. It's so bad. And then other jokes, I was just genuinely like chuckling and getting embarrassed in the theater because there are people in my row looking at me. I'm like, oh god. There's a joke involving a vibrator. It's very funny.
Okay.
But yeah, so overall, I think, you know, it's entertaining. It's definitely worth seeing. It's something a little different, though it does end up copying Scream in the end. At least in the first part, it does try to do its own thing a little bit. It has really good sets where a big scene will take place. Like, one's an abandoned carnival type place where he's chasing her through and they go on the merry-go-round and everything. One's at this drive-in, the Valentine's Day drive-in, and there's a great sequence when the killer's going through there trying to follow the main couple and just eventually goes on a massacre throughout the drive-in, just slashing people left and right. Very Freddy versus Jason. And then at the end, it takes place like this Valentine's chapel or something, which was very epic and fun. So that was really cool. And of course, just the romance. I mean, it's a very by the numbers kind of cheesy romance. And I do think the enemies to lovers aspect was not played up as much as I would have preferred. I just love when the main characters are just going at it with each other and they cannot stand one another. It was more one-sided. Like, she was irritated with him, but he was just, like, googly-eyed over her.
Yeah, that's not fully enemies to lovers.
Yeah, you have a perfect setup, and I think they really should have leaned into enemies to lovers more, because then, like, them just being forced together throughout the film makes that more exciting. It's not as exciting where, like, well, we already know that they like each other, so it's not as, like, how are they gonna react to, like, having to protect one another from this psychopath? It's just like, no, we know they do anything for each other right away, so. But it was still fun, because it's still that tension between them, and then they're get thrown into this crazy situation all in one night, and I
love a one night
movie. Obviously they're forced to rely on each other, and there's a hilarious scene where they have to hide in a van from the killer, and they're like down low, and obviously it's life or death.
Forced proximity trope.
And they start like just chatting and revealing their deepest secrets and desires for each other as they're hiding from the serial killer. Also, as in the back, a couple is having sex. So you have this dramatic scene where, like, the music's playing everything, and it goes on for a while where they're talking to each other, but in the back, you're just hearing people having sex. And it got a lot of laughs from the theater. It was very funny. So there's stuff like that. Like, a lot of jokes hit really well, and some of them just miss 50 miles off. It's a very, what do you call it?
Uneven?
Not whiplash. What's a word I'm looking for?
I don't know.
When you're like... bipolar! It's a very bipolar movie.
Okay.
At one point it's like up here, and then it just like drops. You're like, what? But it's one of those movies where the more I was thinking about it all last night, the more I think about it, the more it grows on me, and I like it, and I want to watch it again. Because I think
you accept it for all of its goofiness and
exactly
maybe weaknesses.
Yeah, because I went in not really knowing what to expect, and then it being like almost a complete spoof really hit me like, oh, okay, that's the type of comedy we're going for. And I didn't really know what to think throughout the movie. I'm like, oh, okay, but now that I've seen it, I've digested it, and I'm like, I can get down with that. And just the idea of the enemies to lovers rom-com accidentally meeting up with a slasher is like, why isn't this done more? Why haven't I written something like this? Actually,
I mean,
yeah,
you should.
It very much inspired me, because kind of all I could think about last night, I couldn't even sleep. I was thinking about, like, that's such a good idea. How could I make something like that? Because I'm obsessed with it now, all of a sudden. Especially since I think the important thing of any movie is to nail the finale. And though the revelation was corny, and I didn't like it, at
corny.
least... Yes, corny.
You are corny.
That final battle and just the two leads teaming up, I'm like, this is so cool. I love it. So I'm a bit bipolar about the movie myself. It's very February
I'm something
horror.
of a bipolar myself.
It's your typical February horror. It is. But I think it's worthy to go out and see it, because it's a fun time in the theater for sure. And I think, it got me kind of excited and eager for like the idea of horror romance as well.
Yeah.
Like, this is such an underrated thing in horror.
Well, we all know I love me some horror romance.
Yes.
But your review reminded me, speaking of like horror comedies, we actually did get a teaser for Megan 2.
Megan 2.0.
They used Feminine Nomenon by Chapel Roan for the music. And they said instead of playing in theaters, they said slaying in theaters. And so they know who their audience is. That's all I'm going to say.
I love that they got upgraded from February release to middle of the year release.
Yeah. I'm excited. I mean, it didn't give away much. It just showed Megan and in silhouette and then her face a little bit at the end. But I'm excited.
She looks even more yassified.
Yeah, she does. She looked very robotic.
Yes.
Also, we got a trailer for Finn Wolfhard's movie Hell of a Summer. Is that what it's called? Hell of a Summer.
I think so.
Which also, I might be biased, but I thought the trailer was really good, and it looks really good. It's coming out in April. I probably won't be able to see it for a while, though. So I'll be waiting. I'll be probably seeing clips on my Instagram, so we'll see.
We've got some exciting horror coming out this year.
Yeah, that's like mostly what I'm looking forward to so far is the horror movies that are coming up.
We've got, strangely, 2 romantic-themed horror movies in a row.
Yeah, Companion came out, and then this. I saw Companion, which I thought was excellent.
Companion, that was a very... it sucks because I think the marketing kind of ruined it a little bit, but
yeah,
taking away all that, it was a very well-done movie.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about that, too. I'm like, well, do I like Companion more or Hard Eyes? And I'm like, Companion is obviously in every way the better film technically, but I think just
Hard Eyes is more
the
fun.
Cheesy goof that I am. I'm more of a Hard Eyes girl.
That's fair. And we also have The Monkey is coming out, but we also have the new Final Destination movie coming up. So like there's also two of those types of horror where it's like circumstantial deaths.
Mm-hmm. Just a lot horror every month. There's a few, I think.
Yes. So there's a lot
interesting.
To discuss. But as far as horror romance goes, I don't know where to start because there's so much of it.
I think just to lead into that discussion, which I'll let Kayla speak since I've been talking the whole first half of this episode. And it feels so weird to talk about a movie and you're just silent because you haven't seen it.
I know.
Horror and romance go hand in hand easily to me. I think it's been that way since the beginning. There's something inherently intertwined about the two because it's about passion and like very extreme, frenzied emotions. I mean, you think of the color red. That's for horror and romance,
blood,
typically.
And love.
Yep. I mean, in the beginning of film, horror was always gothic. It's always gothic horror. The castle and the spooky demons and the capes and the drama. And it's all inherently romantic. It's all tied to romance. Gothic as an aesthetic is romantic. And that's why I think most
And then you have
movies,
gothic romance and gothic horror romance.
Yes.
My favorite genre at the moment.
Yes. And I love that we seem to be embracing that as of late.
Embrace it, embrace it. That's from the Interview with a Vampire musical.
Interview with a Vampire is a great example.
I feel like I need to start there because it's the elephant in the room.
I finally watched it.
Yeah. I finally forced Emily to watch it before I left the country. I said, here it is, and now I'm fleeing.
Yes. And as Abby Lee Miller would say, it was good.
I made Miss Emily cry.
Yeah, it's great. I think about it often.
Well, tell me about it. So yes.
We'll be making video edits in the future.
You will? Okay, well, I have a bunch of songs for you. I have a, 40-song playlist.
I was listening to my August Moon playlist on the way home the other day.
Were you thinking of them?
One of the songs, I'm like, oh, hold up.
This is interview coded.
Yep.
This is Lestat coded. I think, didn't I say that one time you were listening in the car and I was like, this is Lestat coded. I say that with everything, so I probably did.
That's Lestat!
My biggest song for that show right now is Bad Romance by Lady Gaga. I mean,
Yes.
I want your love, I want your revenge. I mean,
that's a song they always use for Kylux. So any toxic boys, we love that song for them.
Anyway, so yeah, going off of like the gothic and just horror romance of it all, I feel like gothic romance is so interesting because it shows like the horrific side of love, and again, the passion, also the things that love reveals to you about yourself that you don't want to know. And Interview with a Vampire, this TV show, but also every adaptation of it and the books is all about that. And it's just beautiful. And I also wanted to talk a little bit about Nosferatu too, because that's kind of is similar, but also flips it, where like the monstrous person, the vampire, is actually portrayed as a monster, and the main romance that we're focusing on in Nosferatu is between Ellen and Thomas being the human love interest. And it's sort of interesting because you have her being pulled to this evil entity in sort of like sexual romantic way.
Very sexual way.
Yeah, mostly sexual. And she hates herself for it, but he still loves her and he accepts her for that. And I mean, there's a lot of different interpretations that people have come up with for Nosferatu, for where it could be a representation of childhood trauma or like sexual abuse in general, or just abuse in general, and like her thinking that she's impure because she's gone through something like that, but him being like, no, I still love you, I don't care. It's so beautiful. And so I still love you. As much as I love the story of like falling in love with the monster and embrace it, I also do love what they did in Nosferatu. So like any type of horror romance I'm here for, because horror can mean so many things. Monsters can be an allegory for so many things, and whether that is internalized things that you fear in yourself, or things that you fear from your past, or things that you actually physically fear. Like, you can do so much with horror, and that's why I'm obsessed with it. And just the romance element, I mean, who wouldn't want romance in their horror? Who wouldn't want romance everywhere? We're human beings. We fall in love.
Yes.
And it's very scary, and hence why horror romance exists.
Unless you're aromantic, then I guess
That's
you're
true.
not into it.
And that doesn't mean you're not a human being either.
That just means you're probably saving yourself a lot of heartache.
True. And that is what horror romance shows you. Interview with a Vampire especially.
Yes. Because also Thomas, he was a little attracted to Count Orlok as well.
So that's what I also like about it, because you could, because it's a remake of Dracula, basically. So a lot of people have been comparing it, and it's easy to compare to the Francis Ford Coppola one in the 90s. And in that one, they make Dracula more of like, he's not so much portrayed as a monster. He's schmexy. I mean, he's Gary Oldman. So, and in this one, I feel like they made the Jonathan / Thomas character, they fleshed him out more in a sense where like I did root for them, whereas in Dracula, he's kind of just there. So you are kind of more pulled to the Dracula character as the love interest. So I just love what they did with his character in Nosferatu. And I feel like they fleshed out the Mina Ellen character too, because I feel like they did a good job of not making her so, I'm in love with this monster and I can't resist it. Like she saved the day herself. I don't like that she had to die, but I don't know. Maybe I just didn't get what the Vision was going for.
Yeah, that was kind of odd, I thought.
Yeah, but other than that, it's a great example of horror romance. We could move on.
We could move on. But
I also could talk about Interview for like tens of thousands of years.
Well, I would like to talk about Return of the Living Dead 3, which is severely overlooked and a wonderful horror romance with kind of the same symbolism, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It's about a young couple who, they're rebels, I guess you would say. Not runaways. Are they runaways? I haven't seen it in so long. They have, they don't like their parents and blah, blah, blah. Very cliche. But then the female character, Julie, gets bitten by a zombie and slowly becomes a zombie herself over the course of the film. And there's a lot of symbolism for me throughout about mental health and basically helping your partner through a tough time. They do this really cool thing in the movie where she, in order to stave off the pain of turning into a zombie, she'll like mutilate herself horrifically. And I feel like there was just a lot of symbolism there for self-harm, maybe even substance abuse. You could look into it that way. And obviously, as the film goes on, like, there's other zombies and they're murderous and they're trying to get away, and you know that Julie's gonna become one as well. But her boyfriend, and I forget the boyfriend's name. Dang. He's not really as memorable as Julie, but he loves her so much and he's not going to abandon her, even though she, by the end of the film, she's looking pretty monstrous, and he's just like, he doesn't care. He's going to stick with her. And then at the end, he thinks that taking her to this facility is going to help her because she's, like, basically her mind is gone now. But then he sees what they're doing to these zombies, like torturing them basically. And he's like, what are you doing? And they're like, well, they're not human anymore anyway, so why do you care? And he's like, nope, not for me. And he is ready to burn down the whole facility to save the woman he loves because he's not going to watch her. He'd rather them die together in the fire at the end than her having to go through that. Her having to either live as a monster and just completely lose herself, or essentially get tortured for the end of time, until the end of time, by these people. And it's, it's a classic, like, tragic love story.
Tragic romance.
Yeah. And just that ending shot where the fire is consuming them, but they're together, embraced. It's like, it's such a wild transition from the beginning of the film where they're just like the cliche, oh, we're rebel teens from like the 50s something, and just seeing all they go throughout the film, seeing all, like, Julie, her transformation throughout the film, and then just the entire time her boyfriend sticking by her. I'm completely objectifying him by not giving him a name, I know. Julian, the boyfriend. I'm so sorry, I haven't seen it in so long. It's such a good movie, and one of my favorite horror couples, just because of how adamant they are of sticking together, even though, like, everything around them, like, they should be far apart from each other. And they're like, no, we're gonna find a way to get through this somehow. Even though it did end with both of them dying, they were like, I'm ready.
But they escaped it.
They escaped. Spiritually, they escaped.
Yes.
And
I would also like to point out a movie that attempts to do the same thing but not so successfully, which is the newest Wolfman movie. I found it interesting how it was definitely an allegory for mental health issue, especially because his dad was spoilers for this movie.
Wolfman 2025. Yeah. Everyone saw it. Everyone loved it.
Well, we find out that his father is the wolf who turned him, I'm pretty sure. So he's also a wolfman. And so it's clear that it's like, oh, this is mental illness being passed down, and now the family has to deal with it. And the mom in the story, or his wife, still loves him, But the reason that I don't think it worked as well is because they had no chemistry, those two actors. I was kind of cringing every time they're on screen together because I was like, they seem like they don't like each other.
And I felt like that was intentional at first.
Yeah, but then it didn't.
They were having problems.
They didn't convince me the other way. Is the only thing. His relationship with his daughter I found more compelling, but again, overall I think it was a little bit too heavy-handed to what they were trying to do. So I liked what they were trying to do, but I think it wasn't executed as well as something like Nosferatu was.
Yep, I can see that. And I definitely felt like that movie was more of a story about parents and children. Mm-hmm. That's why I think maybe the wife took a back seat. It was more about him not wanting to pass on this to his daughter. Yeah. More than the wife, like, sticking through him. I mean, a little bit of that, but I think it was more meant...
It was supposed to be more about the daughter.
The generational trauma of it all.
I love generational trauma. Interview with the Vampire. Ever heard of it?
Oh, yeah.
Literally, I can say so much about it that I can't even speak when I think about it. We need to make like a dedicated episode where I can organize my thoughts and talk about that show. We need to do an interview with a vampire episode. We
need to do an interview with a vampire.
Well, anyway, other iconic horror couples. Gale and Dewey. I almost said Dale and Gooey.
They're great. Everyone loves Gale and Dewey.
The other side of horror movie couples is just two people who kick butt. Yes. And we love to see it. And Gale and Dewey are a part of that group.
Yep. I also have to say Morticia and Gomez.
Yes. They're a sort of horror or like spooky because they defied the societal norms of the time. But that also meant that they were deeply obsessed and in love with each other.
Yes. They are widely considered one of the healthiest representations of relationships in media because they are very much in love with each other. They always communicate. They are very sexually active and healthy in that respect. And there's like that great scene in the second one in Addams Family Values where they're having a conversation in the graveyard. And obviously it's like meant to be funny. It's a funny movie, but Morticia's basically talking about how after having her new baby, she is very happy and she loves her baby, but she also is finding that she's lacking time for herself and to do what she wants to do. And her husband listens to her and he's like, yeah, I understand where you're coming from and we're going to find a way to figure this out because I want that for you too. And it's just such a, like, it's so weird.
That's incredible.
It's just a silly, like, spooky comedy movie, but that's such a great representation of what should always be happening in relationships. And that doesn't often happen in real life or in movies. Film.
Men, be more like Gomez Addams.
Yes.
Just as a general rule.
What about Ed and Lorraine Warren from the Conjuring franchise?
A wholesome couple.
Yes. Speaking of healthy relationships, there's nothing healthier than standing by your spouse through not one, not two, not three, but probably like 50-something, whatever, horrific possessions by demons. And having a kid through it all.
Yup. I mean, there's not much more to say than that.
Yeah.
They're icons.
Yeah, like you were saying before, who doesn't want romance in a horror movie? Because horror is like the most horrific scenario you can imagine. And so terrifying, and how the heck are we going to get out of it? But then you have your trusted partner with you, who is going to stand with you through all the blood and gore and horrific possessions, and is going to fight tooth and nail so that you can both see the light of day once again. I love it, and that's why most people don't like The Conjuring 3. I love The Conjuring 3 so much. I loved the focus on the romance.
It focuses
aspect.
a lot more. And at the end of the day, their romance is often what saves them.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't have to be the case for everyone. But, it's excellent to see.
Yes.
for this couple.
Love will save the day.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, it's nice, especially in any kind of possession movie where the religious symbolism is very obvious. But just the idea that when you go through the worst thing like that, as long as you keep love alive in your heart and you don't fall into the darkness or evil that's trying to eat at you, which is easier said than done, both in the movie and the real world.
Yeah.
But it's just a nice message. I mean, that was the message of the first movie with the mom and her children. Her love for her children was what she was able to pull herself out of it.
So I think that's like a very much an overarching theme in horror is that love often can combat the monsters that come at you because it's so human. Because, like we're saying, even if you are aromantic, like everyone feels some sort of type of love towards something or someone. It's just what keeps us human.
Yeah, connection. Even if it's not romantic love, there's just connection and, I mean, love for fellow humans.
That's what is so interesting about. I hate to bring it back to Interview with a Vampire.
Oh, gosh!
But I feel like Anne Rice was one of the first people to explore the fact and really humanize vampires. Because, I mean, I'm going mostly off the books here, but every character, I mean, like, this is also the show, too. Every character, they are a monster, but the main driving force behind everything they do is a need to find someone to connect to and to love. Because it's really lonely to be a monster and immortal and like not be a part of this human world, because we are all connected together as humans in some way because we experience the same things. We love, we connect, we don't have to eat each other. And it's really lonely to be on the outside of that, especially when you once were a human. So I think it's just a great... Anne Rice vampires are so interesting to me because of that. They really go into that, like the philosophicalness of what does it mean to be a human. And Lestat is so me because in the books he'll like hear music and he'll be like, "It's humanity," and then he just starts sobbing, and I'm like, I would be this way too. So
yes, definitely.
I'll give you a pass.
Yeah, and I think just to round it out a little bit, that's sort of the idea of horror in general, is what separates the human from the monster, and how can we save ourselves from the monster, whether it's like a physical monster or metaphorical or ourselves, any of that. And the answer usually is getting help through a loved one, a friend,
just
a family
connection.
member, a lover, a fellow human who wants to help you. I mean, there's also obviously a lot of horror where it's self-empowerment and you save yourself and you conquer the monster. But I mean,
which
often
is
there's
just as powerful, but it also goes to the same thing where to help yourself, you have to have compassion for yourself, and you have to feel those very human emotions that a monster such as Nosferatu, the vampire, would not feel.
Such as Jason, even though he feels for the young children, that's why he doesn't kill them. But everyone else, he feels nothing.
Yes. Michael Myers might be the best example.
Yes. He didn't kill a baby.
That's true.
He was looking at the baby and he was like, no.
But dogs.
Yeah, he doesn't care about dogs. He doesn't care about kids. He doesn't care about the elderly. He'll kill anyone. But I guess if you're a baby who cannot walk or talk, he'll leave you alone.
Yeah. I think Lestat kills a baby in one of the books.
Oh, great.
I can't remember. I remember there being something like that where I was like, oh, why?
Dang. Like Pennywise.
He does crazy things. He commits genocide, so like he's literally done any crime you can think of, he's committed it.
And why did he do it? Because he's a simp.
Yeah, because he's beautiful and amazing, and he has razzle-dazzle clothes, and he has luscious locks, and you know what? Good for him.
Yeah, you know, we'll forgive him.
That's the other thing is, like, what makes... I know that the other side of it is people have been simping over Count Orlok, and people love Phantom of the Opera and Dracula and all this. There's also that side of gothic horror that's really freeing, where, like, you can just be a freak, and it's like, yeah, you know that these people are monsters, but it's also okay to think they're a little sexy, you know?
Do you know how many people want to be Pinhead's lover?
Yeah, I mean...
It's endless.
I don't blame them.
Yeah. That voice?
Yeah. That bod? That leather?
Yeah, there's that taboo side of it, which was very present in Nosferatu, of, like, the villain being just sometimes only villainous because of how openly sexual.
Yeah, exactly. Which is, I think, yeah, I mean, it's very much a vampire thing. But also, like I said, with Phantom of the Opera, anything like that, it's one of my favorite genres.
Yes. So, to round it all off, bringing it back to Hard Eyes once again, why romance, for me, is so powerful and something I like to see in pretty much every story, and what I like to write about and just engage with generally, is because the idea of just finding your person is so amazing to me. It's the fantastical story where somehow you don't have to do a thing and someone sees you and just begins to fall in love with you just for you being yourself. And there's no prior obligation. You don't love someone because it's your family member or someone you've grown up with. And even though I know not a lot of family members love each other, unfortunately, or have that sort of connection, even when you do have a good relationship with a family member, there's still that sense that there's something obligational. Like, I love this person because they're my brother, they're my mother, they're my grandmother, whatever. But with romance, it's just because you're you, because they met you one day, and it's a beautiful story to me every single time. And just something that's interesting to explore, I think.
And in terms of Hard Eyes, they would fight a serial killer with you.
Yes, and when you take that to horror to the extreme, it's even more like, oh my gosh, I just met this person, but we have this connection, and
yes,
we've fallen in love, and now we're fighting a serial killer together and almost dying, but we're gonna get through it. And I just love that idea. And I think that, I mean, I can't speak for real life because I've never been in love, and I've always been more living in stories, I guess, when it comes to that. So, I don't know, that's probably not how it is in real life, but as far as stories and characters, I think that's just a really sweet,
it's so much fun
thing.
Jan.
Yes. And yeah, I think that's why a movie like Hard Eyes, as silly and not great as it was, I'm still like, I'm down with it, because I just love that idea of two people finding each other despite sort of being pitted against each other, and just like finding that they like someone in such a short amount of time, and with the adrenaline of that also being like, oh, and I'll also put my life on the line for you so you don't get brutally murdered by this psycho slasher. It's a fun idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anywho, that was our thoughts on romantic horror, my thoughts on Hard Eyes, and our first episode of season 3, which was a little scrambled and We've had a couple hiccups along the way, but
Technical difficulties, which will slowly be ironed out as we go along.
Yes. I know it's a little.
Season 3 will be our best season, and you will see it might be a slow burn, but that finale is gonna get you.
It's gonna be just like Hard Ice. You're gonna go through the first 2 acts being like, this is kind of up and down. I really don't know how I feel about this. But then, when you get to that finale and get through it, you're gonna be like, you know what? That was pretty cool.
Had a good time.
And that's actually gonna stay in my mind for a while now. Rent-free.
Just like the best seasons of television.
Yes. Our next episode, allegedly, will be a review of Cleaner, the new Daisy Ridley movie. But I'm not entirely sure because I don't know if it is going to be in a theater near me, since it is a limited release, unfortunately. But I'm going to try to see it. Kayla's going to try to find some way to watch it, hopefully.
Yeah, stream it somehow, I don't know.
But if not, our next episode is going to be our top 10 favorite films of 2024, which is going to be a very fun episode.
My favorite to film the first time we did it.
Yes.
So I'm very excited. I'm excited to give you all of my Twisters moments. And will I be talking about An Interview with a Vampire? Well, yes. I know it's not a movie.
I know, I kept thinking that I want to put Mary and George on the list, but should I? It's not a movie.
You should. In our honorable mentions should include TV shows.
Yes, our honor roll mentions.
Honor roll.
But until then, follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at We Just Want to Talk Movies, so you can stay up to date on news for our latest episodes. And make sure to subscribe to wherever you listen to our podcast so you always are aware when a new episode drops, because you don't want to miss this season. It's going to be just as amazing, even more so as the last 2 seasons. But that is all for this first episode of Season 3.
And we will catch you on the flick side.